If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Our guest today is Jonna McLean. We've talked to Jonna McLean before on 042 and absolutely delighted to have him back again with all the work that he does with foal handling, breaking, starting weanlings, and also working with problem horses. Today we're going to talk about 10 points about the initial foal handling, which I'm sure everyone just, it's a very important topic and very important step in the life of a horse. So how are you today, Jonna?
I'm very well, thank you, Glenn. It's nice to speak to you again, and welcome to all the listeners.
Good to talk to you too. Now, Jonna, we've got 5 preparations and 5 steps. So, it's 10 points to remember. So can we talk initially about the preparation to train the foal? We want to train the foal safely and ethically, but what sort of preparation do we need for the mare or equipment or anything to get this done?
I think the most important part about getting a successful outcome to occur from, as you said, a safety and an ethical outcome is really make sure that we have appropriate facilities. Mm-hmm. And that could be a foal box, or could be just a stable. That does depend on the size of the horse, of course, or it could be a square yard, or just somewhere where the horses are reasonably content, that it's not a completely unfamiliar surrounding.
Okay. So somewhere that's safe, somewhere where the foal's not going to get restless or injured, Yeah.
Or injured, exactly. Mm-hmm. And of course, it needs to be obstacle-free. And if we can possibly try and move the foal and the mare into there without a huge amount of excitement, that's always going to make the job easier as well.
What sort of preparation do we need for the mare before we start to handle the foal?
That's a $1 million question. Control of the mare will most likely infect the foal. So if we think about what the mare tries to do, and the mare will be really worried because somebody's touching my baby, and as we all know, some mares are very, very protective. So we need to spend some time in practicing the manoeuvres that will enable us to be able to control the mare, therefore keep the foal quieter, because it's a double-edged sword. If we let the mare run around and call out, then the foal will go with mum. So the more preparation we can do in terms of control of the mare, so really making sure that we can have the mare to be able to stand and go and turn and be manoeuvrable in a reasonably small area without any excitement. So this needs to be practiced probably before the mare has the foal, but if that isn't possible, try and do that as quietly and as possible as you can in a suitable area like a stable, so we can manoeuvre the mare really accurately, and that will enable us to get close to the foal without the foal being worried and the mother being worried.
I remember from your other interview, something that you said was about horses having good buttons in all directions, but it really goes through for the mare as well, doesn't it? The mare's got to have good buttons in all directions, so you can push her around and manoeuvre around to keep her in the right spot.
Well, that's right, and exactly, Glennis. And I mean, at the end of the day, we still have to do our feet, we still have to drench her, we still have to give her vaccinations, we still have to monitor her on a daily basis. And without those buttons, we are putting ourselves at risk and others. So that's absolutely right.
Okay, now we talked about the right place before. The right place so it's safe, so the foal can't escape, so the foal's not going to be injured. What about appropriate gear?
Yes, that isn't always easy. For the mare, it's fine because we all know what size the head collar will be for the mare and whether she does the rearing bit or whether she needs some sort of other special gear. But for the mare, it's probably I would like to think it will end up just being a halter and a lead rope, and that the handler obviously has their PPE on. They have a helmet and gloves and boots, especially for both the handlers. But for the foal, it's really going to be a head collar that is easy to do up and undo. So when you undo the buckles, it doesn't scare the foal. When you do them up, it doesn't scare them. It's easy to click the lead rope on and off, etc. And you can assemble the head collar of the foal without even looking at the head collar itself. So because you're studying or you're trying to maintain the foal in a certain place, so the last thing you need to be doing is taking your eyes off the foal and fiddling with gear. So preparing and rehearsing and practicing how you're going to go about this. So the right gear is essential.
Okay. All right. Now we've talked about the right gear, the right place. But that's like obstacles free. What about the safe, calm environment? Can you speak about that?
Probably, and I think we've all heard stories about this, where somebody was either handling the horse and something spooked the horse or the horses, and then somebody got injured. Being able to control the wider environment, i.e. other horses running around, because we're now just taking a mare and a foal out of the herd or out of a paddock, and every horse on the farm will know about it. Often when you have horses, you have dogs. Being able to make sure that the dogs are not going to disrupt or create some sort of circumstance or conditions that will make the horses run. Children with toys, people arriving and departing, people driving past. So controlling your wider environment, actually control the wider environment, so nothing left field is left to the gods, so to speak.
All right. Is there anything else we need to do in preparation then before we actually go on to the steps of actually touching the foal?
Probably just to make sure there's nothing you're going to trip over, because sometimes you might have to walk backwards. So making sure you have good control of not just your head collar and your lead ropes, but there's no feed bins in the corner. There's no water buckets. There's no obstacles in the environment.
Yep.
And preferably dust-free too.
Oh, dust-free, yes.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com.
Now, can we start now with the steps to start to handle the foal? Because you said earlier that you want the foal to always give you the right answer. So, if we can have it so the foal, if you want to talk a little bit about the foal giving you the right answer and what the story is behind that, because thinking back, we've all had lots of experiences and even just watching, the Wild West and sort of lassoing the Mustangs and things like that and all the cowboy movies. But talking now about a way of training where the foal gives you the right answer. It's not just throw the lasso on and get them down on the ground and, tie up their legs or anything like that. But what's this about the foal giving the right answer? What's the theory behind that?
The theory behind that is that you get whatever you practice. So it's a pretty easy thing to understand. Whatever you practice, you get better at. That's what practice is all about. So if we can make sure that we have really, another good question, and it's a really important point here, is that if we can always get control of the mare's legs and the foal's legs, especially the foal, because that's what we're training, and we can get the foal's legs to do what we want, where we want, how we want, off a really light pressure, it will be the setup for an absolutely marvellous horse that everybody will wish to handle, because it all becomes very predictable. But when we allow unpredictability to sneak into the scenario, then, of course, the horse gets scared, and whatever profits the escape, it will practice from then on. It only takes 1 or 2 repetitions of escape, and the horse will then choose the same answer again, and that's what we don't want.
All right, so what about the first interaction we have with touching the foal?
So we've got our mare maybe parked against the wall with her bottom in the corner, and she's standing there quite happily, probably being scratched or rubbed by the handler or just standing quietly. And then the foal will choose to go up and probably suckle the mare. And if it's to the near side, that means that the foal will be facing one handler with its bottom and have its head under the other of the mare. So that will present the offside to the mare. So depending on whether the foal is actually really more comfortable being approached from the near side or the offside, generally speaking, there'll be one favourite side or the other, and then the initial handlings of the mare, you'll observe that. But if we can have the foal touching the mare with as much of its body as possible, it won't mind you then touching its, let's say, at the nape of its neck, where mum grooms it is really all the areas you want to start with. So you're basically just mimicking what mum does. And she'll be nuzzling the foal's bottom and its loins and across its back and up its wither and at the nape of its neck and giving it a bit of a rub until it's actually quite happy to be there, making sure that, everybody is away from the kicking zone. We have to be careful because now we have 2 things that could be a problem. The handler could get bitten by the mare, we could get kicked by the foal, we can get bitten by the foal because we haven't secured the foal yet. So we want to just try and make those really gentle and quiet and make our movements really nice and slow. So just getting used to all the tactile inputs that mum does and mimic that on both sides first.
And you said before about the foals having a preference. So do you mean they'll suckle as a preference on one side, or they will put? Yep. So is that the side then that you initially handle?
Exactly. And that's why I said that's what we need to be observant when we're first handling the mare. The foal will choose, preferably an east or an offside suckle, depending on the foal and depending on the mare too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So then you handle them one side. Do you want to talk about then the next step, which is handling the other side?
Yes. So the other side, then you can do the other side by handling the other side. And all we're really doing is habituating the foal to seeing you out of the near side on the offside eye. So then you can reposition the mare and then park her near side against the wall, so only the offside is exposed, and the foal will go to that side, and then that gives you the opportunity then to handle the near side of the foal. So we can do it that way. Mm-hmm. And then the next part really is making sure that then we can ultimately scratch the foal everywhere where we're going to handle him or her by putting our hand underneath their neck and maybe around their bottom, and we can turn them around. And when we turn them around, we're not going to turn them towards us. We're going to turn them so their head is towards mum. So we're not going to try and make the foal turn towards the handler. We're going to try and get the foal to turn around to mum. And it's, if you imagine this like a big cradle, your arms are just a cradle underneath the neck where the neck and brisket are, and then with your right hand around their bottom, and then they get used to being turned around one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And so then it switches. And so that's your initial, very first point of saying, okay, I would like you to do this. I would like to turn you around. Yep. And the best way to do this is actually if the foal then turns towards mum. So both the horses are in the same direction, and then you cradle the foal, and then you basically just encourage with your right hand to turn the foal's shoulders, its head and its neck to the right. So then it goes back into the suckling position, and then it's immediately rewarded for turning around and being cradled. So it associates it with something really positive. So it's not concerning to the foal at all. And that's what I mean by setting it up so well.
Yes, so the foal can only give us the right answer, because if they get a fright, if they get worried, they want to turn around and go towards mum anyway. So you've already got them going towards mum. Yep.
That's right.
Okay.
And then once that happens quite predictably, then turning them around the other way is not going to be a problem.
So you said that's your first initial handling, you're touching them one side, going all over, touching them the other side, turning them towards mum. What happens then? What do you do there?
And this is probably the most critical phase when I was saying before about handling your gear and making sure you become so familiar with your gear, you can assemble your lead rope and your head collar with the foal without looking at it. Because now what we're going to do is we're not going to worry about a lead rope, but we wish to place the head collar on the foal. So in the handling, what we'd like our hands to be doing is to be mimicking what we're putting the head collar on the foal. So the nose first, if you like, or you can do it the other way around if you like to do it the other way around. It really doesn't matter, but mimic what the approach is going to be, and also all the places where the head collar will touch has already been touched by your hand. Over the nose, which is a bit sensitive and a bit scary for them, over the top of the nose once it's placed, and then over behind their ears for the pole strap. So we're mimicking all of that from the near side, because most head collars are done up on the near side. And then that's what we do. We just mimic it 3 or 4 times and then put the head collar in, pass it up to your right hand, and with your left hand, place foals nearly always put their head up to avoid the halter. So what you do is you just hold the nose piece a little higher than their nose, and when they put their nose up, then they actually put their nose straight into the nose piece, and then you do up the pole strap. And then you do it up, and then you go back to rubbing again, and then turn the horse around and cradle it around, and then say, right, now have a little suckle with the head collar on.
Yep. And again, you're manoeuvring that foal towards the mare. So they're, again, always giving you the right answer. Yeah.
Exactly. And hopefully out of all of this management and this practicing, I've not had a single footfall from either the mare, but most importantly from the foal, that any footfalls that would be concerning anybody's safety at all.
And that rebonding with the mare, that's sort of happening through the process, or do you have a certain time then? Just to go back to rebond, just to go back and have a suckle.
And then that's right, and that's also something that we also need to be concerned with, is not only going back for a suckle, but now that we've got the head collar on, that's okay. Give them a little bit of a break. Go and have a cup of tea yourself. These might only be 5 or 10 minute periods, but those periods of consolidation and rest mean that the foal then can have a little bit of a rest time, so then they can continue giving you the right answer. So, it's just spoon feeding little responses at a time, little favourable responses at a time, and have a little break.
Yeah. All right then. Johnathan, I think that's very good. I think that's giving everyone a really good, clear understanding and just all the little things you said, like having it so the mare's controllable. She's the one that's allowing you to go forward, backwards, sideways, just to manoeuvre, to push around. And also too, making sure the foal has got a visual from both eyes. So by the time he's ridden, he's used to seeing different people in different directions. And I think hopefully someone's been listening to this, bred a horse, got young foals, and that will give them a bit more of an idea and an understanding so they can then go on and create some really good horses. And I know you've got, we're going to have you back a few times, sort of putting people back through this process, so if people are really interested in this preparation of young horses to carry on with this series with Jonna, that would be great. And thanks again, Jonna, for coming today, and hope to see you back again very soon.
No, well, I look forward to it, Glenn. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to the next discussion, because the next discussion is probably one of the most rewarding ones, and that's when we get first to hook up the lead rope and the very first steps of leading take place, because that's the most marvellous time. That's probably one of the things that I enjoy the most.
Oh, good. And I think, again, that's going to be very beneficial to, people are sort of listening, and we can give them some ideas there. That'll be good.
Thank you very much, Glennis. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wait, before you go, if you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.